The House That Breathed at Night, a psychological horror story. Block 1, The Inheritance. I never believed in ghosts. I still don't. What happened to me cannot be explained by ghosts, demons, or any supernatural creature your imagination can conjure. What happened to me was real. Concrete. Documented on magnetic tape and hidden for decades, waiting for someone foolish enough to watch. That someone was me. My name is Marcus Whitmore. I'm 34 years old, and until 6 months ago I was a systems analyst in Philadelphia. One of those people whose life is so numbingly ordinary that the scariest thing they face is a software update gone wrong. I had an apartment. A cat named Bowie. A routine so predictable that my Uber driver knew my order from the coffee shop before I did. Then the letter arrived. It came in a yellowed envelope, the kind you don't see anymore, with my name handwritten in trembling calligraphy. The return address was from a law firm in Crawford County, Pennsylvania, Hartley, Moss and Associates. I'd never heard of them. I'd never even been to Crawford County. The letter informed me that my great-uncle, Elias Whitmore, had passed away at the age of 94, and that I was the sole beneficiary of his estate. This included a house, 47 acres of land, and this was the exact wording, all contents therein, material and otherwise. Material and otherwise. I should have paid more attention to that phrasing. The thing is, I had never met Elias. I barely knew he existed. My father, before he died when I was 19, mentioned him exactly once, during a Thanksgiving dinner when he'd had too much whiskey. He called Elias the family's dirty secret, and said that some doors were meant to stay closed. When I asked what he meant, my mother shot him a look that could curdle milk, and the subject was never brought up again. Now that door had been opened for me. The drive to Crawford County took 4 hours. I left Philadelphia on a Friday afternoon in late October, watching the city dissolve into suburbs, suburbs into farmland, and farmland into something older, darker. The trees along Route 77 were already stripped of leaves, their branches reaching toward a gunmetal sky like the fingers of the drowned. The GPS took me off the main road around 5 p.m., just as the sun was beginning its descent. The secondary road was unpaved. Gravel crunched under my tires. The forest pressed in from both sides, so thick that headlights became necessary despite the remaining daylight. Then, after what felt like an eternity, I saw it. The house. It sat at the end of a dirt path, surrounded by a rusted iron fence that had long surrendered to the surrounding vegetation. Victorian in style, but corrupted somehow. The angles were slightly wrong, the proportions subtly off, as if the house had been designed by someone who had only heard buildings described but never actually seen one. 3 stories. A wraparound porch that sagged like a broken spine. Windows so dark they seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. And above the main entrance, carved into the wooden archway, a phrase in Latin. Quod intus est intus mene. What is inside remains inside. I sat in my car for a long time, engine running, heater on. Something primal in me, the same instinct that kept our ancestors out of dark caves, was screaming at me to turn around. To drive back to Philadelphia. To sell this property sight unseen and never return. But I didn't listen. I never listen. The front door was unlocked. It swung open with a groan that echoed through the empty house like a death rattle. Inside the air was thick, not with dust as I expected but with something heavier. Something that felt almost wet. And there was a smell. Faint but present. Like copper and rotting flowers. The electricity was off but I had a flashlight. Its beam cut through the darkness, revealing a frozen moment in time. Furniture from another era, covered in white sheets like shrouded corpses. Portraits on the walls, ancestors I didn't recognize, their eyes following me with uncomfortable intensity. A grandfather clock that had stopped at 3:33 a.m. I would later learn that 3:33 a.m. was when Elias died. The law firm had given me a key to the property and a sealed envelope with instructions to open it once I was inside the house. I found a candle, lit it, and sat at the massive oak table in the dining room. My hands were shaking as I tore open the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, covered in the same trembling handwriting as the original letter. It read, "Marcus, if you're reading this, then I'm dead and my burden has become yours. I'm sorry. I spent 71 years trying to find another way, but the bloodline demands its due. Go to the attic. Behind the false wall on the north side you'll find a box. Inside are 7 VHS tapes, numbered 1 through 7. Watch them in order. Watch them alone. And whatever you do, do not stop watching once you've started. They don't like to be interrupted. When you're done you'll understand. And then, God help you, you'll have to make the same choice I made. I am not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. Your great-uncle, Elias Whitmore. P.S. Don't go in the basement. Not yet. Not until you've watched the tapes. I read the letter 3 times trying to convince myself it was some kind of morbid joke. An old man's dementia made manifest. But even as I rationalized, I could feel it, a weight settling over me, invisible but undeniable. The house was watching. Waiting. The attic was on the 3rd floor, accessible through a pull-down ladder in the ceiling of the upstairs hallway. The ladder resisted at first, as if the house itself was reluctant to let me up. When it finally descended, a smell washed over me, that same copperan flower scent, stronger now. The attic was surprisingly organized. Old furniture. Stacks of newspapers from decades past. A dressmaker's mannequin that made me jump when my flashlight caught it. And on the north wall, just as the letter described, a section of paneling that didn't quite match the rest. Behind it was a metal lockbox. Inside the lockbox were 7 VHS tapes. They were labeled in black marker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Nothing else. No dates. No descriptions. I brought them downstairs. In the living room, beneath one of the shrouded shapes, I found what I was looking for, an old Zenith television set with a built-in VCR. A relic from the early 90s. I plugged it in and to my amazement it still worked. The screen flickered to life, bathing the room in pale blue light. I inserted tape 1. And my life as I knew it ended. Block 2, The Tapes, Part 1. Tape 1, dated August 12, 1973. The footage was grainy, washed out, exactly what you'd expect from a home video of that era. But there was something unsettling about it from the very first frame, a quality I couldn't quite identify. It took me several minutes to realize what it was. There was no sound. Not silence, that would imply an absence. This was something else. A suppression. As if the audio had been deliberately erased, or as if something had consumed it. The camera was stationary, pointed at the house's front porch. The same porch I had walked past an hour earlier. But in this footage it was summer. Trees in full bloom. Sunlight streaming down. A family came into frame. A man. A woman. 2 children. A boy of about 10 and a girl of perhaps 6. They were dressed in 70s fashion, all wide collars and earth tones. They were smiling. Waving at the camera. The man was unmistakably Elias. Younger, stronger, but with the same deep-set eyes that I recognized from the portrait in the hallway. The woman I presumed was his wife. I hadn't known he was married. I hadn't known he had children. For several minutes the footage showed nothing but this. A family moving in and out of frame, carrying boxes, unpacking a station wagon, doing all the mundane things families do when moving into a new home. It was almost boring. Almost normal. Then the girl stopped. She was in the yard, chasing a butterfly when she suddenly froze. Turned toward the house. Toward a specific window on the 3rd floor. The attic window. She stared at it for a long time. Even without audio, I could tell she was speaking. Her lips were moving, forming words. And then she smiled. A wide, unnatural smile. And she waved. The camera panned up to the attic window. There was nothing there. Just darkness. The tape ended. Tape 2, dated October 3, 1973. This one had sound. It was night. The camera was inside the house, in what appeared to be the living room, the same room I was sitting in. The furniture was different, warmer, lived in. A fire crackled in the fireplace. Elias sat in an armchair facing the camera. His face was drawn, tired. Dark circles under his eyes. "I'm making this recording because I need proof," he said. "Proof that I'm not losing my mind. Proof that what's happening is real." He took a deep breath. It started 3 weeks after we moved in. Doors opening on their own. Footsteps in the attic when no one was up there. The usual things you dismiss as an old house settling. But then Martha started hearing the voices. He paused. Looked off camera as if checking that he was alone. She says they come from the walls. From inside the walls. Whispering. Always whispering. She can't make out the words but she hears them. Every night. Getting louder. He leaned forward. And the children. Something's wrong with the children. Especially Emily. She talks to someone. Someone only she can see. She calls him the smiling man. She says he lives in the basement. She says he's been waiting for us. For a long, long time. The footage cut. When it resumed, the fire was out. The room was dark. Elias was still in the chair but he was asleep, or unconscious. And standing behind him, barely visible in the shadows, was a shape. A humanoid shape. Too tall. Too thin. With a head that was tilted at an impossible angle. It was looking directly at the camera. And it was smiling. The tape ended with a burst of static. Tape 3, dated December 25, 1973. Christmas morning. The camera was in the living room again, capturing the children opening presents by the tree. The boy, whose name I would later learn was Thomas, seemed happy, excited, normal. But Emily sat apart, holding a wrapped box that she hadn't opened. She was staring at the basement door. "Emily, sweetie, open your present," Martha's voice said from behind the camera. Emily didn't respond. She just kept staring. "Emily?" The girl finally looked at the camera. Her eyes were wrong. Empty. Like windows into a room where all the lights had been turned off. "He doesn't want me to," she said. "He says presents are for people who deserve them. He says I haven't earned mine yet." "Who says, honey?" Emily smiled. That same unnatural smile from the first tape. The smiling man. "He says I need to do something first. I need to go downstairs. He says there's something waiting for me. Something that's always been mine." The camera jerked. There was the sound of it being set down. Then footsteps. Then Martha's voice, louder, more urgent. "Elias. Elias." The camera captured what happened next. Emily stood up, calmly walked to the basement door and opened it. Below was nothing but darkness, a darkness so complete that it seemed to pulse. She stepped through. The door slammed shut behind her. And from the other side, from deep beneath the house, there came a sound. A sound that the camera barely captured but that I will hear in my nightmares until the day I die. Laughter. The laughter of a child. And something else laughing with her. Block 3, The Tapes, Part 2. I stopped watching after tape 3. I had to. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely eject the cassette. Sweat had soaked through my shirt despite the cold. And somewhere in the house, I was certain of it, I could hear something. A faint rhythm. Like breathing. Or like a heartbeat. I told myself I would leave. That I would drive back to Philadelphia, contact the law firm, and wash my hands of this cursed property forever. But when I went to the front door, it wouldn't open. The handle turned, but the door itself was sealed. Not locked, but sealed as if the frame had fused to the wood. I tried the back door. The windows. All the same. The house wouldn't let me leave. I thought about breaking a window, but when I picked up a chair to do it, I saw something that made me drop it immediately. There, in the glass of the window, barely visible in the moonlight, was a reflection. A reflection that wasn't mine. It was tall. Thin. With a head tilted at an impossible angle. When I spun around, there was nothing there. But the message was clear. I had started watching the tapes and I would finish watching the tapes. Those were the rules. Those had always been the rules. I went back to the living room. I sat down. I inserted tape 4. Tape 4, dated January 14, 1974. The footage showed a hospital room. White walls. Fluorescent lights. The steady beep of a heart monitor. Emily was in the bed. She was unconscious, tubes running into her arms, a bandage wrapped around her head. Standing beside her, holding her hand, was Elias. He looked like he had aged 20 years since the Christmas footage. She was in the basement for 16 hours. His voice said, ragged, exhausted. When we finally got the door open, we found her at the bottom of the stairs. She was curled up in the corner, whispering. The same words over and over. We couldn't understand them. The doctors say it's catatonia. They say she may never wake up. He started to cry. This is my fault. I should have listened to my father. He warned me about this house. About what's underneath it. He told me the truth and I didn't believe him. I thought they were just stories. Old superstitions from the old country. But they're not stories, are they? They never were. He looked directly at the camera. If anyone ever finds this, if you're watching this, whoever you are, you need to understand what this place is. What we built it on. What we fed it. Pause. A long, terrible pause. My great-great-grandfather, Silas Whitmore, came to America in 1847. He was running from something. Something he'd done in England. Something involving children. Missing children. Children who were found incomplete. Another pause. He brought something with him. Something old. Something that had been worshipped in the shadows of Europe for centuries. He built this house as a temple to it. He made promises to it. Promises involving the bloodline. Involving every firstborn child of every generation. His voice broke. Emily is the firstborn. My firstborn. And I didn't protect her. I didn't. The tape cut to static. When it resumed, Elias was alone. The hospital room was dark. The monitors were silent. And Emily's bed was empty. A message was written on the wall, in what appeared to be charcoal, or something darker. She belongs to us now. As do you. As do they all. The tape ended. Tape 5, dated March 8, 1974. This tape was different. The camera was handheld, moving through the house at night. The footage was shaky, chaotic. Someone was running. Martha. Thomas. Where are you? It was Elias. Panic in his voice. Terror. The camera swept through the hallways, the kitchen, the dining room. All empty. All wrong. The furniture was overturned. Scratch marks on the walls. And that smell, copper and rotting flowers, was visible now, manifested as a dark stain spreading across the ceiling like mold. Oh God. Oh God, no. No, no, no. The camera entered the living room. Martha was there. She was standing in the center of the room, facing the basement door. Her nightgown was torn. Her feet were bare and bleeding. And she was speaking, whispering really, in a language that shouldn't exist. A language made of sounds that the human throat was never designed to produce. Martha? Honey? She turned. Her eyes were gone. Not gouged out, gone. Smooth skin where the socket should have been. And yet she was looking at him. She was seeing him. He says it's time, she said in a voice that wasn't hers. He says the family is finally complete. All the children. All the generations. Together, in the dark, forever and ever and ever. She smiled. And her mouth opened wider than any mouth should open. The camera dropped. There was screaming. Sounds of struggle. And then, beneath it all, that laughter again. That terrible, inhuman laughter. The tape ended. Tape 6, dated December 1st, 1974. Nearly 9 months had passed since the previous tape. The footage was stable again, deliberate. The camera was pointed at the basement door. Elias's voice, calm now, resigned. I made the choice. The same choice every Whitmore before me has made. The same choice you'll have to make, whoever you are. He stepped into frame. He looked like a ghost of himself, gaunt, hollow, barely alive. They're all down there now. Martha, Thomas, Emily, and the others. All the others, going back generations. They're waiting. They're always waiting. And they're hungry. He turned to face the camera. The thing in the basement, it doesn't have a name. Or if it does, it's not a name that can be spoken by human tongues. But it has needs. It requires sustenance. And in exchange it offers gifts. Knowledge. Power. Life beyond life. He laughed. A broken sound. I used to think I was damning them. My wife. My children. But I understand now. They're not dead. They're not even gone. They're just changed. They've become part of something greater. Something eternal. And one day I'll join them. And one day... He looked directly into the lens. So will you. Tape 7, undated. The final tape was unlike the others. There was no footage of the house. No footage of the family. Instead, there was only darkness, pure, impenetrable black. And a voice. Not Elias's voice. Something older. Deeper. A voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once, from inside my own skull. It spoke a single sentence. Welcome home, Marcus. We've been waiting for you. And then the tape showed something. Just for a moment. Just a single frame. A photograph. Of me. A photograph of me standing in front of the house, taken from the attic window. A photograph that had been shot that very evening when I first arrived. A photograph in which I was not alone. Behind me, in the darkness of the doorway, were shapes. Dozens of shapes. Men, women, children. Their eyes were empty. Their mouths were open in silent screams. And at the center of them all was a figure. Tall. Thin. Head tilted at an impossible angle. Smiling. The tape ended. Block 4, the basement. The television shut off on its own. The candle I had lit went out. And in the sudden, complete darkness I heard it. Footsteps. Coming from above. From the attic. Thump. 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 Moving toward the stairs. Descending. Thump. 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 Reaching the second floor. Continuing down. Thump. 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 I was frozen. Paralyzed. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but there was nowhere to run to. The house had made that clear. I was inside and I would remain inside. The footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs. Entered the hallway. Approached the living room. And stopped. Right behind me. I could feel it. The presence. The weight of something ancient and hungry standing so close that its breath, if it breathed, would have touched the back of my neck. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. A voice whispered in my ear. The same voice from the tape. You've watched. Now you understand. Now you must choose. I found my voice. Barely. Choose what? The bloodline must continue. The family must grow. You are the last of the direct line. The last who carries the covenant in your veins. If you refuse, you die here and the covenant is broken. If you accept. The presence moved. I could feel it circling me, though I still couldn't see it. You live. You leave. You continue the work of your ancestors. You bring others here. You feed us. And when your time comes, you join us in the eternal dark, where there is no pain, no death, only belonging. I should have refused. Any sane person would have refused. But sanity had left this house decades ago. And if I accept, I heard myself say, what do I have to do? Go to the basement. See what your family has built. See what awaits you. And then, bring us what we need. The young. The forgotten. The ones no one will miss. Bring them home. The presence withdrew. The lights flickered back on. And I was alone. But I wasn't. I could feel the house watching. The walls listening. The darkness below waiting. I walked to the basement door. My hand touched the handle. And I opened it. What I saw in that basement, I can't describe it. Not fully. Language doesn't have the capacity to contain what exists in that space. But I'll try. Stairs descended into darkness, not ordinary darkness but a solid darkness, a darkness with texture and weight. The smell hit me like a physical force. Copper and rotting flowers, yes, but also something else. Something sweet. Something almost attractive. I descended. The basement was larger than it should have been. Much larger. The house above was perhaps 3,000 square feet. The basement stretched on forever, tunnels branching off in every direction, carved from the raw earth. And along the walls of these tunnels were alcoves. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Each alcove contained a body. Not corpses. Bodies. Preserved somehow, neither alive nor dead, their eyes open and aware, their mouths frozen in expressions of ecstasy or agony, I couldn't tell which. Men. Women. Children. Going back generations. I saw clothing from every era. Colonial garb, Victorian dresses, flapper outfits, bell-bottoms, modern jeans. A timeline of victims stretching back to the house's founding. And at the end of the central tunnel, in an alcove larger than the rest, I saw them. Martha. Thomas. Emily. They were still there. Still preserved. Emily's eyes, she still had eyes unlike her mother, focused on me. Her lips moved. Daddy promised you'd come. He said the family always comes home. And then she smiled. That smile. Block 5, the choice. I ran. I ran back up the stairs, through the basement door, through the living room to the front entrance. And this time, the door opened. I didn't question it. I didn't hesitate. I sprinted to my car, started the engine and drove. I drove until the sun came up. Until Philadelphia's skyline appeared on the horizon. Until I was back in my apartment, Bowie meowing at me for his breakfast, the whole experience already feeling like a fever dream. But it wasn't a dream. I know because of what I found in my jacket pocket when I finally stopped shaking enough to change clothes. A photograph. The same photograph from tape 7. Me standing in front of the house. The shapes behind me. And on the back, written in that same trembling calligraphy. The first is always the hardest. You have until the winter solstice. We'll be waiting. That was 6 months ago. The winter solstice is in 2 weeks. I've tried everything. I've gone to the police. They found no record of the property, no record of Elias Whitmore, no record of anything I described. I've contacted historians, paranormal investigators, even a priest. None of them could help. Some of them went missing shortly after I spoke with them. The house is erasing itself from existence. Or perhaps it was never really in existence to begin with. Perhaps it exists in some other space, some threshold between what is and what should never be. And I've been having the dreams. Dreams of the basement. Dreams of the alcoves. Dreams of Emily's smile. In the dreams I'm not running anymore. In the dreams I'm bringing people. Homeless individuals from Kensington. Runaways from the bus station. People who won't be missed. People who are already half disappeared from the world. In the dreams I walk them into the basement. I watch the darkness take them. I hear their screams transform into something else. Something like gratitude. And I feel peace. I'm writing this because I need someone to know the truth. I need someone to understand what the Whitmore family built and what it demands. But I'm also writing this because I've made my choice. The dreams are right. The voice was right. There is no escape from the bloodline. There is no breaking the covenant. There is only acceptance. In 2 weeks I'm going back to the house. And I won't be going alone. Final revelation. There's one more thing I need to tell you. One detail I left out. Remember the photograph? The one from tape 7 showing me in front of the house with the shapes behind me? I looked at it again last night, under a magnifying glass, trying to identify the figures in the darkness. And I saw something I hadn't noticed before. In the crowd of preserved bodies, in the army of eternal victims, there was one figure that didn't match the others. This figure was holding a camera. This figure was wearing my father's watch, the same watch I inherited when he died. This figure was my father. He didn't die of a heart attack when I was 19. He came home. And now so will I. The house that breathed at night is still there in the hills of Crawford County, waiting for the next visitor. The next inheritor. The next child of the bloodline. If you ever find yourself on an unpaved road in rural Pennsylvania, and you see a Victorian house with wrong angles and windows that absorb light, keep driving. Don't stop. And whatever you do, don't look at the attic window. Because something is always looking back.